Welcome aboard! We will be your guides during this magical journey into the movies. It's the perfect job for us because we love the movies. It's showtime! Ready when you are, CB!
Action!
Welcome to Monoreel Radio, episode number 315. I'm Sean.
And I'm Jackie.
And we are here this week to review and discuss Inside Out 2. Very excited to talk about this film. Very excited because it kicks off a couple of weeks where we are going to recap some of the big releases from 2024.
Yes, we are going in chronological order of release, but I'm actually very excited that we're starting with this one because you were staunch against an Inside Out sequel. So I think this is going to make for a very interesting discussion. I went back and I listened to our review of Inside Out, which we had done right after the D23 when they announced the sequel, and you were not happy about this one.
You know, I think the thing is, a sequel makes sense in that obviously we entered Riley's life at a very interesting time. They left it off in a very natural position to do a sequel. The sequel, in theory, makes sense, but for me, and I probably said this on the show, and I stand by it today, my issue with sequels is that it's never just a sequel. And this is really, it's a Disney problem, but it's really more a commentary on Hollywood as a whole. They don't just make a movie. If it can't be turned into a franchise that they can market and spin off, that's where I become frustrated. Sometimes you just have a great film, and it works, and you move on to the next great film. So, with that being said, after we saw the initial trailer for this, I was very excited. And I was also very excited to sit and watch it for a revisit now, because I know that this dropped on Disney Plus, I think a couple of months, maybe a few weeks ago, maybe a few months. I don't know. You get into that time with the holidays and you're in a wormhole. But we didn't rush back to watch this. So
right.
I remember really enjoying it in the movies when we saw it upon its release. So I was really excited to sit and watch it and revisit it and sort of see maybe if my tone had softened and my stance had softened a little bit on whether or not this really did need a sequel. So, have I softened on it? Does this hold up to its predecessor? And do we need a third? Oh, guess what? Because we're going to get a third one. You know that. That, on top of many other things, is what we are here to discuss today.
This episode is sponsored by Fierce Fox Co., designers of handmade silkscreen shirts. Fierce Fox has a t-shirt, tank top, hoodie, or crew neck for every fandom. So whether it's the movies or theme parks, princesses or villains, the MCU or Star Wars, everyone will find something they love. The designs range from subtle quotes from our favorite films to iconic characters we can wear proudly in so many different styles, such as sketchbook and concert tees. Listeners of Monoreel Radio can get a 20% discount using the code Monoreel at checkout. Visit fiercefoxco.com to check out all of the collections.
Riley is thriving in San Francisco as she plays hockey with her best friends Grace and Bree. Their team, the Foghorns, wins their league championship, and the girls are approached by Coach Roberts to invite them to a hockey camp to try out for the high school varsity team the following year. On the eve of the camp, joy, sadness, anger, disgust, and fear are alarmed when the mysterious puberty button goes off on their console. The old console is replaced with a larger one, and the gang is introduced to anxiety, embarrassment, envy, and ennui. These are new emotions that Riley will be feeling for the first time. Joy tries to keep things as they are while anxiety takes control and seemingly does a better job than Joy does. Things in Riley's life become complicated when she learns that Bree and Grace were assigned to a different school next year and can't join her on the Firehawks, assuming they make the high school team. Anxiety causes Riley to become obsessed with impressing her idol, the varsity captain Val Ortiz, even at the expense of her friends. But, she launches Riley's sense of self into the back of her mind. This was a device that Joy had created to get rid of those bad memories that we don't need to think about right now. She bottles up, quite literally, joy, sadness, anger, fear, and disgust, and sends them away to the vault, where they meet Bluefy, Lance, Slashblade, and Riley's dark secret. Bluefy was a character from a TV show that Riley liked as a preschooler. Secretly, she still likes it, and Lance was a crush she had. Lance as a video game character. They also meet Pouchy, Bluefy's fanny pack, and they use dynamite in the fanny pack to escape the vault. The emotions decide to travel to the back of the mind to restore Riley's sense of self. Meanwhile, Riley gets closer to Val and further from Bree and Grace. As the emotions prepare to ride the stream of consciousness to the back of the mind, Sadness realizes that one of them must return to HQ in order to recall all of them, so Joy nominates Sadness as she knows the console better than anyone. Anxiety continues to build a new Riley. Complicated sense of self is starting to develop as Riley learns of the coach's red notebook, which contains notes on every player. Riley starts to lie to her new friends to impress them and creates sarcasms in her mind. She grows concerned when she learns that there will be a scrimmage the next day that could determine her hockey fate. Embarrassment discovers Sadness at HQ, but decides to keep her hidden from Anxiety. Anxiety and envy make Riley break into the coach's office to steal the red notebook, where she sees that the coach doesn't think she's ready for varsity. So Anxiety starts a brainstorm as she needs a big idea to help Riley make the team. Joy, anger, disgust, and fear get caught up in the brainstorm, but it ends up moving them closer to the back of the mind, where Riley colors her hair red and decides that she needs a hat trick to make the team, breaking Val Ortiz's 2-goal record. Riley's new sense of self is full of anxiety and doubt. Sadness is trapped in a bucket by anxiety, but freed by embarrassment, so that she can go and try to recall the others. But before she can, Anxiety destroys the tube to bring them back to headquarters. The game starts, but Riley acts as a puck hog instead of a team player. Out of other options, Anger calls Pouchy and pulls more dynamite out of the pouch. They blow up the mountain of bad memories and ideas that had been stored in the back of the mind, and they ride the avalanche back to headquarters. Riley accidentally injures Grace and ends up in the penalty box, where an unhinged Anxiety begins a whirlwind and gives Riley a panic attack. Joy pulls Anxiety from the console, as all of the emotions pull the new sense of self away and restore the old sense. Joy sees that none of them can determine who Riley is, and sees that repressing the bad memories was also detrimental. She sees that Riley can have multiple senses, as it is all a part of growing up, and all of the emotions come together to work in unison for Riley. Riley apologizes to Grace and Bree, and subconsciously calls Joy back to the console. She finishes the scrimmage strong, and as far as we know, makes the Firehawks while remaining friends with Bree and Grace as they go off to new schools.
I could not love this open more. I mean, it's hockey, so that's a given for us, right? But I had talked about what a brilliant choice that was to make that Riley's sport in the first one, because being that we're in the mindset of a young girl, it gave something for the young boys watching to latch onto. And they just up the ante in this open, making it so much more action-packed. And it's the perfect reset, because you get the score that we all know and love on the electric guitar, which feeds right into the action. Each of these emotions are playing to their strength at some point in the game. And that was something, I had never really considered, is how much you are tapping in to each one of those things and what a range of emotion it is, even though hockey's such an aggressive sport. I love Joy calling the game. I just love every single thing about it. Perfection.
And the animation's unbelievable.
Oh my gosh.
Some of the best animation we've ever seen. Take it from the guy that didn't want the sequel. God, is this a seamless transition?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is so perfect. And I love how they have the added islands, the added values, how Family Island is kind of like pushed to the back, because you know that she's getting to that awkward age where, even though Family Island should be very important, and at the end of the day it is, and when she hits 30 she'll regret it, all of these other things that are seemingly important have overtaken it. Like, it's so relatable. It's so well done. I absolutely love how this film starts.
It's so true with the Family Island shrinking. Oh my goodness. I do want to pose the question up front, though, because when they had announced the sequel, you and I talked about a possible time jump because it was like 7 years between the first and the second. So we thought maybe they would put Riley at like high school, college age. What do you think about picking up right where they left off?
I think it makes sense. I think it was the right move because you already teased puberty. So if they would have jumped into college, it would have seemed like something was missing. And I think that the smart thing that they did with this sequel, much like the first, is that they make it incredibly relatable. So as the audience grows up, they're sort of growing up with Riley. And in a way, that target demographic that saw the first film, they've kind of already, if they're not in the middle of, they're already towards the tail end of puberty. So I kind of feel like they would appreciate this more now that they've gone through it and they understand it. It becomes more relatable to them than if they were going through it in the moment. I think that if you're going through it in the moment, there's something you can learn from it, and perhaps there's a bit of comfort in that, and that you don't feel alone, and it is very confusing, but I think it was smart to not necessarily put her in high school because it would have felt too much like a jump.
I 100% agree. From a story standpoint, at this age, there's so much more that you can do with these emotions, because if they aged Riley up too much, then you lose the whole theme of what this franchise is about, is learning to control your emotions. And,
right.
You know, the older you get, theoretically, the more you should have them under control. So I think that to have more fun and really like stretch the limits of what you can do, you do have to keep her young when she doesn't necessarily know how to balance everything just yet. And I also think from, you know, the audience standpoint, to your point, it is more relatable keeping her young because, you know, for the younger kids watching, it's going to give them insight for what they can expect as they grow up. But for everyone else, you know, I think it's more relatable for us to look back on this time in our life and relate to the growing pains. And the other thing, too, is that Riley's not really our main character. Our main characters are the 5 of them in headquarters. That was something that we had talked about when we reviewed the first one, too, was what a challenge it must have been to give them full character arcs in the sense of the movie, but how difficult that was because they are emotions. So you're sort of handcuffed with what you can do with them. But here, I think it's sort of an interesting transition because the first Inside Out was more of a story of man versus nature because Riley is picked up out of her comfort zone and relocated.
Right.
This is more a story of man versus himself because of all the internal conflict. So Riley does sort of become more of a main character.
Yeah, it's in the first movie, she's more like Megazord. You know what I'm saying? She's really a vehicle for the Power Rangers.
Exactly.
But in this case, you're right. She's more of a fully fleshed out character because of that internal struggle and because she is getting older and she's starting to develop new feelings and complex emotions. And that's where I like hockey as a microcosm for her life. I think it's smarter to do that as opposed to like, oh, let's give her a crush. You know, like this, I think, makes a lot more sense because it is so much her personality in the first film. There is something, though, there's 2 instances I hate when if you're going to do a sport, you got to get it right. The animation is great. There's no buzzer beater in hockey. It's not basketball. It's not football.
Even in kids hockey?
No. If a puck goes in the net, the clock is dead. The puck doesn't go in at 2 and then click 1, 0. That's not how it goes. They would have still won the game, but technically speaking, she scores that goal, they'd have to go to the face-off dot. It's a waste, but if you're going to do it where you need this buzzer, just put them in overtime. Just put them in sudden death. If you have to have that moment where they score and the clock runs out, just put them in overtime. There's something else that happens in the scrimmage as well that drives me crazy, and they use it as a major, major vehicle, and it's incredibly incorrect. But I'm going to put a pin in that. It drives me crazy. And I've said this in almost every sports film that we've talked about. If you know the sport, you have to do it the right way.
Well, that's what I was going to say. This is not the Mighty Ducks. The sport is a vehicle in this case, but
I have thoughts for later.
No, I know. I think it is fair to be critical, and not just because we're super hockey fans, but to that point, if you're going to do it, then keep it real.
Right. You can't rewrite the rules of the game so that you have a better story when there are logical ways to play by the rules and give yourself a story.
Well, speaking of rewrites, though, I want to talk about some of the new things that they've set up here, because I feel like we're starting to have a few contradictions. For example, Joy introduces the Back of the Mind Express, and she's just sending things back there. We keep the best and leave the rest.
Yep.
And, we see later there is just a mountain of memories back there that begs the question, how long has she been doing this? And what about forgetting? Because we see how Riley's memories are pruned in the first one. And it was a comedy bit. It was a great comedy bit where they're going through and she is never going to need to know all of the president's names. And they toss it in favor of, more storage for something social or whatever.
Yeah.
So we know that Riley's mind is always going to be, obviously expanding, and we see that because there's more storage, there's more shelves for everything, but we also know that there is space being made. So I like that in the beginning they set it up that this is just sort of a throwaway thing that Joy is doing to keep Riley happy, because that's what Joy does. It's always, she has to be happy. She has to be happy. And that was her whole character arc in the first one, was learning to live with these other emotions. I thought it was super smart that they set this up now. They get bit by it when anxiety comes into play, and they deliver on it that Joy was actually not acting in Riley's best interest, because this is not protocol what she's doing. And I think it's really smart how they bring that all back around. I love the belief system and her sense of self. Again, gorgeous animation, and one of the most poignant lines I feel in both movies. Everybody has gone down with Joy to see it except for Sadness. And Joy tells her it's time, come and see it. And they step into the elevator and she says, where you go, I go. And that really is the perfect summation of the full movie, because Joy really had to learn to live with sadness, and they have to coexist to make everything work.
So let's undo all of that the minute that the other emotions come in.
Well, it is conflict. Brilliant delivery on that puberty button.
Yes.
This is perfectly deployed here. The only thing that I bump on a little bit is that I don't need to see the team sleeping. I think that takes it one step too far, because we don't need to give all of the emotions that much of a life of their own. And in the first one, I believe one of them had to stay up all night, because there's actually a really funny sequence where Fear is watching the dream, and he's like, oh, if we don't get a nightmare.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like all of them should be off the clock, but like I don't need to see them have a living space. You know what I mean? That kind of took me out of it.
It did. I don't care that we see their bit of living space, but what took me out of it was, to your point, in the previous film, one of them had to stay up to watch these dream sequences, and you just did an entire spin-off series about producing these dreams.
Also that. And they throw to them. They throw to headquarters.
Correct. So now we're going to abandon all of that so that we get this. You could have just as easily had one of them sitting there. It could have been Fear. It would have been hysterical. Watching a dream sequence, the rest of them are away, and the puberty button goes out, and he has a freak out. Like, it could have been hysterical. There are I mean, these are some of the biggest contradictions from the first film, and I just wish that they would have steered away. There are little things, much like the hockey. There's little things they could have done to clean it up where it didn't feel like we were taking a step backwards.
Where it does succeed, though, is this new idea of I barely touched the board.
Yes.
And it fires off so big on the outside with Riley.
It's great.
But that is so relatable. It's true. You just feel like you can't control it no matter how much you try. I go back and forth, though, because I feel like it sort of does a disservice to womanhood, because there is obviously a very specific thing that happens when girls go through puberty, and the fact that they don't touch on it at all, I don't think it should be glossed over, but with Turning Red, they did address it quite a bit, so I feel like it might have been too much of a rehash had they done something like that.
I think it's too much of a rehash, and I think at the end of the day, while I don't disagree that that's obviously something that's glossed over, not everybody who's watching this is 15 years old. If you have a 5-year-old watching this because they want to see joy and sadness, maybe a parent doesn't want to have to explain to a 5-year-old just yet what exactly is going on. And they did face some backlash with Turning Red for a lot of those reasons. Now, I thought Turning Red was great. I liked that film a lot, and I thought it handled it in the right way. But I don't think Turning Red was ever confused with having a target demographic. This could.
That's the other thing, right? Is that, I just praised the film for using hockey as a way to keep the boys engaged. You would lose them entirely with something like that.
But I think the first film, I'm not going to say it's geared towards little ones, but it's quote unquote, for a lot, because I don't have a better term for it, it's safer for the little ones. And I think that if people are going to show this movie to a 3 and 4-year-old, they're not going to show them Turning Red, perhaps, but Turning Red was never advertised as being for a 4 or 5-year-old.
You knew what you were getting with
Correct.
Turning Red going in. So we've got headquarters in shambles. I want to talk a little bit about what's happening externally before we meet these new emotions. Riley's getting ready to go to the hockey camp for a couple of days with Bree and Grace, and we learn on the way there that they're not going to high school with her. It is so brilliant to hear the words come from Lewis Black. We can't do high school without Bree and Grace.
Yeah.
And he's having a meltdown. It is so funny. One of the best anger moments. But in the car on the way, there's this really great, really subtle comedy beat where Dad asks Mom what they're going to do on their big weekend alone. And he kind of gives her the eyebrows, right?
Yeah.
I wish they had cut to the parents' inner monologue, because they do it so well in the first one where, they're at the dinner table and they're reacting to Riley, not giving them any information about her first day of school. This would have been such a great comedy beat to get inside their mind of him trying to put it out there and getting shut down with a list of, well, we got to clean the garage, we got to do this, we got to do that. And instead, we get the inside the mind of Bree and Grace. It's still funny having both Bree and Riley's disgust arguing back and forth and over analyzing the look, but I feel like we could have gone for a bigger laugh here for the parents watching.
I agree. People have heard me ad nauseum talk about the Shrek humor. This would have been a great opportunity for it. They didn't do it, but you move on from that. The brilliance here was the spilling the tea, the quite literal spilling the tea on the console.
Yes.
That was hysterical. I loved that that's how they did it, and that she just, it was Grace, just blurted out, she's not going to be our coach next year. And you knew that they were bottling that up. I thought it was so well done. It
also does create this really great conflict, right? Because Bree and Grace don't have to take this as seriously. They're looking at this as, this is just one last hurrah as the three of us, so let's have some fun with it. And that really does become a foil to Riley. And we see that right away because we meet the infamous Val Ortiz, who Riley really looks up to. And then this, I feel like, is such a big moment that sort of gets glossed over, is Val asked where she's from, or she goes, "You're from Michigan, right?" And Riley just rolls with it because she wants her to like her. So relatable. We've all done it. We don't want to correct anyone. We want the cool kids to accept us, or maybe not the cool kids, but at least in this case, somebody that she looks up to very much. And you don't want to rock the boat and ruffle any feathers. But this may seem so simple, the fact that she doesn't want to correct Val. Think back to the first one and what Minnesota meant to her. How grief-stricken she was to leave, how difficult the move was, that she tried to run away back. And now you're denying Minnesota? This is a huge thing. This is the first fracture in Riley losing her sense of self, and just completely gloss over it.
And in this case, I think it works. I think it works to build up drama. I think it works to start tearing down the character. You're right. It's the first thing she does before she goes and starts to create the fracture between Bree and Grace. But I'll be honest with you, though. This is going to be so unpopular. I kind of agree with Anxiety breaking away from Bree and Grace. I'm just going to say it. They get to this hockey camp. As you pointed out, Bree and Grace don't have to take this seriously.
Right.
And I remember when I was in junior high school playing golf with the varsity team, right? And starting to make that transition. It's very awkward. And you're trying to impress people. And it's very difficult to do because they're 18 and you're like 14 or 13. Like, I totally get it. But even I knew, like, try to hold yourself to that higher standard because you're trying to make the team and you're trying to make a good first impression, not only on your teammates, but on the coaches. So when you have Grace and Bree in there and they're like, let's make funny face selfies. And it's like, no, we're here to take it seriously. And, they get punished almost right away by Coach Roberts. I think Coach Roberts is right, number one. And maybe this is just because I was an athlete in high school. Coach Roberts is right. Anxiety's right. Bree and Grace are wrong. This is my unpopular opinion. If you have no skin in the game, don't guilt somebody and don't bring somebody else down when you know how important it is for her to make this team.
Exactly. And I so wish that is a conversation that was had between Riley, Bree, and Grace at some point down the line or like actually when Riley hits her breaking point and she has the anxiety attack. Yes. I was wishing for you guys are going to have each other next year. What do I have? This is what I'm going to have. I need to figure out how to fit in with them.
Right. And that's why Anxiety causes the panic attack. Like that entire thing gets overlooked in service of, I was a bad friend.
Yeah. And instead it should be Riley was a jerk. Make no mistake about it.
Oh yeah, we're not saying she wasn't.
Bree and Grace are not being great friends either.
Correct.
Because she's going to be alone and they should be setting her up for success and supporting her instead of, oh, you don't want to hang out with us. But that's also the age, right? This is where they were smart to not age the movie up too far. I also think this is very typical for movies of this ilk, of that, to circle back to your high school experience, any film that tackles this like rise to fame where the main character has to step up and step into who they are, who they're going to be, whether it's a sports team or whether it's like a rock band or something like that, you always get that trope of the people that knew you when calling you a sellout.
Yeah.
So that's sort of what's happening here on a smaller scale. So you mentioned anxiety. Let's get into it. All of these new emotions. I love how they're deployed because you've got the 5 emotions that we know, just trying to navigate puberty and headquarters being in shambles and this new console. So you barely get a second to breathe before you get the new emotions. Any other time a new emotion has been introduced, it's just been one at a time.
Yes.
So now you're getting 4 more. What do you think of the emotions that they chose to portray here? Because there were a lot that Pixar had to make some deep cuts with to arrive at what we have.
I think they made the smart decisions. I think that they, with the new emotions that they brought in, especially with anxiety, I think that you could have done more. I think that you could have gone in different directions, and perhaps they would have worked, but I feel like it would have lost a lot of the heart of the film. Perhaps it would have come off more mean and pouty. And I think that with boredom, ennui, that's obviously there for a bit of comedy when you get the angsty teens. Envy, I think everybody had that. Embarrassment, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And anxiety, guess what? A lot of us still have anxiety on the daily. So I think that those were the 4 smartest ways that they could have done it and kept the movie fairly lighthearted, because I think that it would have leaned too heavy had you gone in a different direction.
I agree. I think that they're also just such great counterparts to what's already there. It's such a great reflection of this age, because this is the time when your emotions are becoming more complex, and just having the 5 of them aren't going to cut it anymore. You can get sad when something happens, but embarrassment is a whole other level of feeling. And I love how they design that character and how they channel it, because embarrassment is such a big feeling, and all this guy wants to do is hide under his hoodie. So I think he's such a great counterpart to sadness. Same with disgust and envy. Same with anxiety being a parallel for fear. I love how they break that down. Of fear is worrying about what's happening to Riley right now, like don't touch the hot stove. And anxiety is fear of what could happen. It's, well, if you touch that hot stove, you get set on fire, and she spirals. It's just such a great representation of everything becoming more deep and more complex, and having all of those things turned up to 11 because you're going through puberty.
I love that they quite literally bottle up the original 5 emotions.
Oh my gosh.
And send them to the vault. I think that was brilliant. And can we talk about meeting, the deep dark secret, of course, but Lance, more specifically Bluefy. Can we talk about the brilliance that is Bluefy?
I think this might be the best 4th wall break in Disney history.
It's hysterical. And the fact that it's so relatable, if you watch Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, that's what this is. Blue's Clues, same thing, right? And the fact that you cut to the POV of the 5 emotions and Bluefy is just staring at a wall waiting for an answer.
So good.
It's hysterical. I think this was probably the hardest I laughed in the theaters, and it was the hardest I laughed when we watched this again.
The only thing that I sort of bump on is who is having our main 5 arrested, because I always thought that headquarters was like, the ones in charge, especially as it pertains to what they did with the Dream Production series. So it's kind of like, who sent the other emotions? Who is anxiety reporting this to that she has them locked away?
I didn't overthink it that much. That doesn't bother me.
This may come as a shock, but I did.
Oh boy.
I also love how throughout, they're cutting back and forth to the journey between the 5 of them trying to make it back to headquarters, and what a social commentary anxiety is on like Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and that attitude of like coming into the workplace thinking that they know everything and know better, and that all of the old systems should just be trashed.
Spoiler. None of you were that smart. Sometimes it's good to listen to your elders.
No, but you know what? We all did it. We all did it. We all, got out of college and went to our first job thinking that we knew everything because we had just been through the system.
I didn't. I loved listening to the people that had been in our field for a long time. I wanted to learn from them. I thought there are ways that we can modernize a little bit of it, but I never looked at them and said they were wrong. I never looked at them and said they were wrong, and I never thought I knew better than they did. That's the difference. I wanted to learn from those people.
You did, but you can't sit here and tell me that you didn't think you knew better at some points.
There were people I thought I knew better then, but I also wasn't going to. No,
I'm just trying to keep you honest.
No, and I'm going to be honest. I wasn't trying to reinvent the wheel. You don't work with a lot of these kids face to face. I do. I want to launch most of them into this. All right, let's move on from this.
Well, that's also now when the age gap is so much more between, people that are younger that you work with. I'm talking about when we first started out, because that's when I met you, was just out of college. We were still in college.
Yep.
Working in radio. That's what I'm talking about.
And I wanted to learn from the radio vets.
Okay. All right. Moving on. Our main five are trying to make it back to headquarters. One of the other things I bump on a little bit that we thought was so clever in the first one was that you get these random trains of thought, right?
Yeah.
So if anxiety's job is to think ahead and play all of these scenarios, shouldn't we have more trains that they can just hop on to get back?
You'd think.
I thought that was kind of a miss, but I also do understand where, you have to keep them on the ground and keep them moving, because later on they're going to do, the sarcasm, and eventually that wall of memories is going to crumble into her belief system. So that's what's going on internally. Externally, Val is sort of reaching out to Riley and trying to include her and have her be a part of the team.
I love all of this.
Especially when she invites her for the hangout one night.
Yes.
This is where all of your conflict comes to a head. They're talking music, and they ask Riley what her favorite band is, and she says a boy band. And there's nothing wrong with that, might I add. It would have been so incredible if her favorite band was Four Town, because we do get that crossover with Dream Production. I would have loved if they, really canonized it and made it part of, officially part of the same world. I think that would have been cool. But she says, Get Up and Glow, I believe is the name of the band. Yeah. And one of the other girls on the team, Danny, I believe, she was like, oh, I used to love them when I was your age. And then, she kind of gangs up on her a little bit, and she's like, you don't still like them, do you? And naturally, as this is happening, Bree and Grace walk up and they overhear it, and they've just been to a Get Up and Glow concert. So this is when Riley really has to make her decision. The music memory is brilliant, because she's in a little bit of a panic, and she's like, oh my God, just say anything. Why can't I recall anything? They deploy the triple dent gum.
Yeah.
The best runner. I love that they kept that going. And then she just says, I love Get Up and Glow, very sarcastic. I feel like they were a bit handcuffed with the writing here, because what it's doing inside for me works better than what's going on outside. Like, I don't understand the sarcastic answer. And maybe it's just because it's not what I would have done in that scenario, but she could have just totally denied Bree and Grace, but like, what are you talking about? Like, that concert was years ago or something, or just downplayed them without having to do the sarcasm.
I didn't mind it because I've been on the receiving end of that, with friends that either it was a band that we used to like, or it was wrestling matches we used to go to when we were kids. And, as you get older, you start to grow out of some of those things. I've been on the receiving end of, what are you talking about? We just did this last year. No, we didn't. And they try to come off as being too cool. So I found that to be incredibly relatable. And I think to the point that we kind of go back to earlier, you said Riley was a jerk. I agreed. And this is where you needed her to be one. Because to the point I made, I don't necessarily agree that Bree and Grace are guilt-free in all of this. So you needed Riley to take a turn. And I thought they did it in a really smart way.
No, I agree with everything that you said. And you do need to split them up at this point. You do need Riley to clearly draw the line. It's just really the sarcasm. I feel like that was all for the sake of having the inside of Riley's memories start to crumble. And it's so true, because when you do start to deny your inner child like that, that is what happens. You know, you are taking memories that you loved and you know, tucking them away and suppressing them, and you shouldn't. But I think that's it. To me, sarcasm does not convey the same message as too cool for school, like you said. I feel like there was a way for Riley to do it as more of a put down without sarcasm.
Correct. And you know, the benefit of not suppressing those feelings is one day you're going to turn 35 and then you're going to buy a house an hour outside of Disney World so that you can keep your inner child happy for the rest of your life. What I love that they do here with Val to talk about, you said she invites her out. Val, something that they do brilliantly, which I love, she was never a phony icon. She was never a phony idol. She could have just as easily been somebody that was like talking behind Riley's back.
She could have been the mean girl.
She could have been. I'm glad that she wasn't. And I love the fact that she is a good influence that inadvertently becomes bad because they take her dedication and her skill set when it comes to hockey, and Anxiety takes it one step too far. Yeah. It's so well done because never does Val do anything wrong, but it leads to obsession.
I'm really glad that you bring that up, though, because that was one of my questions as I was watching was, why is Val taking such an interest in Riley when she's younger? You know, like, you can be nice, you can make someone feel welcome, but like, I feel like Val is so going the extra mile, but you're making me realize now that those are such leadership qualities with hockey that if Val's aspiring to be a captain, like, of course this is what she would do, and she would take someone under her wing.
And there's only, I believe, a 2-year age gap.
Yeah, it's not that
old.
Because they keep referencing when Val made the team her freshman year,
and became the captain her sophomore year.
Right.
So suffice to say, she's a junior.
So about to, and Riley's going to be entering high school.
A freshman, so.
So inside, they have sent Sadness back. To headquarters because they realize that they're going to have to be recalled with Riley's sense of self from the back of the mind.
Love it.
And it all works. You know, Joy sends her back under the guise of nobody knows the board better than you do. And it's true because Sadness was the only one who read all the manuals.
Yeah.
And because she's already established that connection with embarrassment, she has the in. All of that checks every box, works so well. So Joy vaguely knows where they are from the last time. They stumble into Imagination Land, which is changing. Yep. Imagination Island has gotten a little bit smaller. We're not having such bonkers fun ideas. And I love the metaphor with that because Anxiety is now using Riley's imagination against her. And Joy stumbles upon this operation, which is good. Brilliantly animated, like just perfect idea, perfect execution. It is animators. It's how, you know, the whole thing started. You've got this office reminiscent of the classic Disney animators with all of their desks, and they're submitting ideas for worst case scenarios for Anxiety. Whole thing, brilliant.
That, the rumor mill being like a supermarket tabloid. This whole thing is brilliant, and I love that it leads to this brainstorm. Like, quite literally, a brainstorm. It's so well done.
I love that is a thread that has continued from the first one, is that they take these common phrases that we know, like a train of thought or a figment of your imagination, and they just keep building on that.
Yeah, stream of consciousness.
Yes.
Like, it's so brilliant.
And I love the parade of future careers because, that is something, that's where her imagination land is shifting right now, because at this age, you are starting to think about what life is going to look like when you grow up. So I love that it's a parade, and they use that to, it is a great vehicle that they're using the hot air balloon to go into the storm, and that's ultimately what's going to get them back. Here's one thing that I really start to bump on, though, because obviously inside Riley's mind is chaos. Anxiety has taken everything way too far. Before Joy had regained control of Riley's imagination, anxiety was feeding her all of these scenarios while she was asleep. So now Riley is woken up in the middle of the night by her big idea, which is to go and take a peek at the coach's notebook where she's been jotting down everything, all of her observations about the camp the past couple of weeks. I think it's a smart choice because Riley has lost her sense of self completely. She's, trashed her friends. So she's going to act out of character. But is it out of character really? Because we have seen her do this before. When Joy and Sadness were removed from headquarters after the move, Anger was, for the most part, flying the plane. And she was making all of her decisions in anger. And their solution was to run away. And then she realized, it's not the right thing to do. I have to go back home. And this is where she should have come to that realization that this is not the good move. But because anxiety is completely taken over, she's not even acting out of character. Out of character would be the one and done that it was when she realized right from wrong the last time. Now she goes through with it. And I buy that for her mental state right now. But there's no repercussions. And that's what bothers me, is that she did the wrong thing. And we need that for the sake of story. But there's no lesson here for what she did.
I don't necessarily agree. I think you needed her to do something out of character because that's what anxiety causes you to do. Anxiety, envy, these are the things that happen when you start to experience all of this. She acted out in anger in the first film and immediately regretted it, knew what she did was wrong. You need a bit of self-righteousness, especially at this age. So I think that the way they handled it was the right way to go about it.
No, I do agree with that, especially because anxiety is a completely different ball game than making a decision out of anger. And, that is something that a lot of people have a lot of difficulty keeping in check. Some people can't do it on their own. Some people need to see a therapist for it. Some people need to be medicated for it. And that's all totally fine. And I think that that's why they went so big here, to show that Riley couldn't tell right from wrong. She couldn't make that decision to double back on it. But I just feel like, for the younger kids that are watching, there needed to be some, all we see is how she internalizes this, and it makes her work harder. And it gives her tunnel vision even more when she's on the ice. We needed to see her get caught and get disciplined for this. Because that's also where you could have shifted the story back maybe to Bree and Grace, is the coach finds them out. She kicks all three of them out of camp. You're too young. I shouldn't have done this, blah, 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 blah. And then Riley has it out with them. You guys aren't being supportive. You have each other next year. I have no one. And you ruined this for me. And then how does she handle it from there? But I guess maybe then it becomes like too much of a character piece.
And it feels too much like an after-school special at that point. At that rate, you might as well be a TGIF show where your lead character gets caught drinking. That's kind of, I think, where you just lose too much of what the movie's trying to do. Something that happens that I think is really smart, and again, incredibly relatable, seems to be a theme with Inside Out, is as the emotions, our original emotions, start to become further and further detached from their goal, you have a moment where Joy says, you feel less joy. I guess that's just a part of growing up.
Oh, it's so depressing.
But it's not wrong.
Exactly. That's why it hits so hard, because Joy is spitting truth.
And that's where I think that it does bridge the generation gap extraordinarily well, not unlike the first movie.
Well, that was also something that we had noted in the first film too, is that when they cut to the inside of mom and dad's heads, and I feel like this does sort of go against all of the new things that they introduce, or I should say the new things that they introduced in this film go against the first one, because all we ever see in mom and dad's head are the main 5 emotions. And I'm wondering if that was just because, you know, it was the first movie, they weren't thinking bigger picture, but by introducing new emotions, it kind of got me thinking that you don't see these in mom and dad's head. And I'm wondering if, because the takeaway is in fact supposed to be that as an adult, you do have more of your emotions under control. But if you also think about what's going on with mom and dad, all of them are sitting around the console, just like calmly and sort of throwing it back and forth to each other in the moment, as opposed to standing and move out of my way. And I got this situation and I think that is all intentional, because that's sort of the point, is to show how you do need to balance out your emotions as you grow up and as you learn.
Let's talk about the scrimmage, because now Riley is trying too hard. She's being too much of a puck hog. I mean, I get it. I think that it's smart. I think that it was another smart way of taking Riley and not making her dislikable, but showing how flawed she can be when she's acting out of desperation.
Well, that's it, right? I realize that anxiety is driving, but Riley has to know that teamwork is just as much an important part of showing the coach what she can do than outscoring Val. You know, like there's got to be some sort of Riley override where it's like, this isn't how you play hockey. This is not going to impress the coach. I need to at least be passing, not stealing.
No, I think that acting out of desperation, and it's a commentary on how anxiety makes you act out of character in desperation, I think that works. Let's pull the pin out of the note that I left a short while ago.
Okay.
Riley would not have been in that penalty box. And it drives me crazy that they used it as a vehicle to give her the panic attack. As the puck carrier, I don't care. I don't care. As the puck carrier, if you are making a cut towards the net with the puck and a defensive player hits you in open ice, it's one of two things. Either there's no penalty because it's a clean hit, or the defensive player gets called for interference, which Grace should have done, because in the animation, Grace is skating with her head turned. She doesn't know Riley is going to be there. So it's not playing the body. It's not a defensive play. It's an accidental open ice contact impeding a skater from making the play. Grace was supposed to be in the penalty box.
Oof.
Anybody that knows the rules of the game will tell you that this is the case. So, again, I understand that you're trying to have Riley accidentally injure somebody and she has to feel regret, and you use it as a vehicle for you use this as a vehicle for her to have this anxiety attack. However, you can't rewrite the rules of the game for a plot device. Dying on the hill.
No, you're right, because I don't like when they do that either. But at the end of the day, it's also an animation. Sometimes you have to stretch and bend the rules a little bit to make a story work, you know?
I mean, they had no problem giving her a tripping penalty in the championship game and putting her in the penalty box.
True.
Or here's an idea. She could have thrown a dirty hit.
Well,
Oh, she could have really acted out.
and that would have tracked, because that's my biggest issue with this whole thing, is that I feel like hurting Grace is what should have triggered your anxiety attack. Not just the fact that you're in the box and everything is falling apart. And I mean, yes, that is what does it, because everything is overwhelming. You have messed up from every single angle. It's your friends, it's your chances of making the team, it's your future. So you need her to feel all of that pressure at once. But like, this thread and this echo of, I'm a good friend this entire time, from her belief system, that should have been the thing that pushed her over the edge. However, I feel like this anxiety attack is the most brilliant visual representation of what's going on, because it's a total frenzy. It's a tornado in your mind, but anxiety, the character is frozen, because that's
It's
also
such-
it. You
such
can't
well
do
done.
anything. You are totally paralyzed. It's stunning. And like, even just the way something horrible is happening, but they utilize the color. It's just so well done. And while all of this is going on, the anxiety attack isn't cut against this, but just prior, they have to get Joy, fear, disgust, and anger back to headquarters. So they have anger recall Pouchy, and it's just the most brilliant thing. Again, what these movies do so successfully is nothing is ever wasted. What seems like a brilliant comedy bit, and it is when they're in the Vault of Secrets, the way they just brought it back around, I buy it. I buy it. And not just as a means of getting them back to headquarters. More importantly, what's happening is that Joy realized she screwed up by trying to pluck all of these memories, because good, bad, or indifferent memories make you who you are. Everything belongs in that core belief system. So using Pouchy's dynamite to blow up that mountain and have it avalanche into the core beliefs, again, another brilliant visual representation. And now you have everybody back at headquarters, and once again they learn that they have to work together. And I love this hug over the sense of self. I thought it was so cute to bring everybody together in this way.
Yeah, everybody comes together all at once, and they continue to sort of live on in harmony and finding ways to balance each other out.
I also really love the idea, or at least putting this idea in front of kids, that your greatest joy can also be your biggest stressor. Because it's true, when you have a goal like that and you want something so badly, they're like, this is so relatable, and there's a good stress that comes with attaining that goal, and you should put a little bit of healthy pressure on yourself, but this is a great thing for kids to see, to not let it get so far. And then they tie it up in this nice big bow with, we've learned to manage our anxiety because she has a special chair and her tea, and the chair vibrates when she needs to relax. It's so good.
It is. And I love the fact that by the end of the movie, she's now being called Minnesota. So at some point in time, though we didn't see it, they have been corrected. They're calling her by the right name.
I wish Bree and Grace had corrected her. Instead of the music nonsense, as funny as it is, I wish that Bree and Grace were the ones to call that out and be like, what are you talking about? She's from Minnesota, not Michigan. And just totally blew up Riley's spot.
Well, there are a lot of things that they did do in the film. Given the fact that it is Pixar, and given the fact that there is a sequel, there are a lot of Easter eggs that you could be on the lookout for. Where in the Film is brought to you by our friends at Where in the Park, a seek-and-find card game that you can play in your favorite parks, whether it's Disney or Universal, SeaWorld, or more. Where in the Park challenges you to spot those little details that so many can miss. To order your game packs, visit monoreelradio.com and click our affiliate link for a 10% discount today. Something that stood out to me off the rip. I believe it's when Riley is playing in her first hockey game. Sadness grabs binoculars to watch the action. They are the walking binoculars from Toy Story.
Oh my gosh. Nice catch.
I was so excited to see that. Because usually you're looking for Pizza Planet, but that was what I was so excited when I saw it. Very subtle, very well done.
I didn't catch a Pizza Planet, though I'm sure it's there. Probably buried in Imagination Land somewhere, but it is a Pixar movie, so of course we know we're going to see A113 as the nod to their classroom back at the animation college.
Yeah.
So this time I thought it was really clever because, you know, it's usually a license plate or something that is a little bit more obvious. They did it as Roman numerals over the bank vault.
Very smart.
Or the secret vault. But yeah, I thought that was really clever and a way to like really make it blend in.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about our cast here. We're going to talk about our recast and our new cast because we've obviously talked about our returning cast. Liza Lapira is recast as Disgust in this film, taking the role from Mindy Kaling. I thought she did really good. If you didn't know exactly who Mindy Kaling was, I thought that this was a fairly seamless transition.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I think it was seamless. And if you didn't know what was going on behind the scenes, which if you don't, as a refresher, Bill Hader and Mindy Kaling did not want to take the contract that was offered to them because it was for less money. And, you know, understandably so, because they've introduced so many new characters, but you can't insult your biggest talent by not paying them what they're worth. I think that Disgust was a lot more seamless than Fear. Maybe it's because I know and love Bill Hader's work so much. I feel like Fear sort of stood out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, Tony Hale, it's not that he did a poor job with it. Maybe it's because he's forky. Maybe it's because, to your point, Bill Hader's performance is just so iconic. That one, I don't want to say it felt like a miss because it's not fair to Tony Hale, but that's where you felt it the most.
There's just a noticeable difference. And the other thing is like Pixar kind of got off easy because you are introducing so many new characters. Each of them is getting less screen time. So that's also what the contract dispute was over. But there's sort of less opportunity to even hear the difference in the performance.
You have Maya Hawke as Anxiety. Love Maya Hawke in Stranger Things. And I think that this character is incredible. I love aesthetically her look, that her hair is all over the place, that her eyes, you just see the white of her eyes all of the time. I love her scenarios. And I thought Maya Hawke was great. I didn't realize, mostly because I don't always deep dive into the personal lives of these celebrities. I didn't know that she was the daughter of Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman.
Yeah.
But when you look at her, you're like, oh there they are.
Yeah.
There they are. Both of them are there. She was spectacular.
But I don't want to hear Nepo Baby because she's so talented in her own right. I love the voice that she gives Anxiety. I love the confidence that she exudes when she comes into the mix. And I love that like slight squeakiness to it.
Yeah.
It matches the character design perfectly. To your point, the wiry hair, the big eyes, and the twitchiness. I love it so much. They knocked Anxiety out of the park.
She was really good. Ayo Edebiri plays Envy. I love this little character because they intentionally made her look almost like a toddler, but I think that aesthetic works for the character.
It does, right? Because she's tiny, but she's got these big puppy dog eyes that just convey, I want that, you know? And it is very childlike, like a 5-year-old. Like, I want that. And to not understand why you can't have it. Ayo Edebiri is so talented. You don't want to watch The Bear. I've not gotten into it. My parents watch, and usually I'll catch some of it at their house. She is so crazy talented, and I wish she would have gotten a little bit more screen time in this.
All right. My apologies to you because this is going to be butchered. Adele Exarchopoulos. I'm going with Exarchopoulos. Plays Ennui. This character is spectacular. I love that they went Ennui instead of boredom, that they made her French, that they gave her the beret. But specifically what I love is that she controls the console through an app. And she's attached to that phone all of the time. It is a microcosm of everything that drives me crazy about teenagers today.
It's great for the character, but it's
So good.
also great for the plot because eventually sadness has to steal that. It's how sadness starts to regain a little bit of control for the rest of them. It's so smart to incorporate this character. And just, I think this may be probably the most perfect visual representation of a feeling.
Very close second, though, is Embarrassment.
Oh, God.
Played by Paul Walter Hauser. They went through a lot of different designs with this character. I think what they landed on was perfect. This just very large personality that just hides underneath the hoodie. Like, visually and sort of symbolically, this was perfect.
He's like uncomfortable to watch, but that's the whole point. He's just so uncomfortable to watch. And I mean that as a compliment because that's the whole point, right? You're supposed to want to feel like you just need to hide. So good. So good. Like you needed this. And what's amazing is that he has like one speaking line. Mm-hmm. And you don't need much, and he does so much.
Lilimar plays Val Ortiz. As I said earlier, I like that they didn't make this character the mean girl. I thought that this character was great. I love that they gave Riley a positive influence that was the upperclassman. And again, risk of repeating myself, I love how a good influence inadvertently becomes bad. I think the whole thing just works.
Yeah, I think that was really smart to not put more pressure on Riley through the channel of being bullied or, having that mean girl of Riley feeling like she still needs to live up to her and emulate that sort of behavior because there's enough going on. And to your point, it is more effective because these are, that's not to say you're going to get bullied. It's a part of life, unfortunately. Yeah. It's worse with social media now. As you go through school, that's what's going to happen. But I think something that kids don't recognize is that bullying doesn't always come in the form of like a big bad or like somebody that looks mean or looks like they're going to be hard on you. It does come from, especially when you put pressure on yourself, it comes from the nicest people that you're trying to live up to. So I think that this was really smart and really relatable.
Grace Liu and Samaya Nuruddin Green play Grace and Bree. To me, it's nothing against the voice actors. I think that they did a fine job. There's nothing all that special about either one of these characters. They're necessary. You needed them because you needed Riley to have that internal conflict and cast her friends aside. But I don't walk away from this going, I love Grace and Bree, because they could be anybody.
There's sort of best friend tropes, but I do love that we got to see the genesis of their friendship, that Riley met them in school and they bonded when Grace tipped over her presentation and Riley helped her clean it up, and then so did Bree, and they were the only ones in the class to do that. So I love that they just sort of locked in and you have that lifelong friendship forming.
Yvette Nicole Brown plays Coach Roberts. I love Yvette Nicole Brown. She does so much with Disney and she's such a fan. I wish they would have given her more screen time. I feel like she was underutilized. I know that you can only do so much and you're trying to keep the plot moving, but I wish we would have gotten more with Coach Roberts.
Yeah, I love anytime Yvette Nicole Brown pops up. She always does a wonderful job, but this is where, again, that scene where Riley got busted looking at the notebook would have gone really far, especially because she would have delivered that disciplinary performance.
Then you have Ron Funches, James Austin Johnson, and Yang Yi as Bluefy, Pouchy, and Lance Slashblade. Brilliant. Bluefy, more Bluefy. Pouchy, more Pouchy. I want to spin off of that. And what I love about Lance so much is that choppy video game animation from like PlayStation 2 and how he just walks into random walls and jumps and can't find his way around corner. It's so spot on.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. More of them. The feat of putting the 2D animation and the video game glitchy animation into this, it looks so incredible. They're such fun characters, but in a way, I like that it was contained into that little beat. I feel like 2 more would have been a little bit too much, but if they do a sequel, which we know they are, because you get the end credits scene with Riley's deep dark secret that she's not ready to let out yet, I'm sure we're going to see more of them, and it's going to be great.
Final thoughts on Inside Out 2. I'll go first. Upon revisit, I walked away from it the first time saying, this is as good as the original. It might even be better. And as I've watched it a couple of more times, I will say that the ceiling is almost as good as the original. There are a handful of things, hockey rules aside, that I think kind of take it down a step. More so things you observe as you watch a couple of times through. I think that we do rehash a little too much of some of the things that we seemed to have fixed in the original film. I think Joy takes a step backwards. I think the rest of them take a step forward. I think she takes a step back. So I feel that while there were natural continuations and things that made sense, that is a little bit of a tougher pill to swallow. I just don't like in general when films take their characters and take them a step back because they have to, because we made a sequel. Especially when you're introducing so many new emotions and ideas and characters. I feel like your conflict comes from that. But if its ceiling is that it's almost as good as the original, its floor is that it's almost as good as the original. This is one of the most across-the-board consistent films that they've made in a long time, and I would rank it high on my list.
Get out of my head, man. I don't have too much to add to it because I feel the exact same way. We walked out of that theater, and I was like, this was flawless. It was just as good, if not better than the original, and the original was perfect. But upon rewatch, I did notice a few more things, and what bothers me most is when sequels have to rewrite the rules of the original. And I feel like here they were a bit handcuffed and they had to rewrite some things that were set up in the original. So while not perfect, it's as perfect as you can get, I think, as far as sequels go. This is one of the best, like when you compare it to like, say, I don't know, Cars 2, like this is an incredible sequel. I would say like this is on par probably with Toy Story 2 as far as following up a banger with an equally good film.
Well, we want to know what you have to say about Inside Out 2. You can let us know on all forms of social media at Monoreel Radio, or you can send us an email, monoreelradio@gmail.com. News of the week is coming up, but first a quick break.
News of the week is proudly sponsored by KMV Travel. KMV Travel is a boutique travel agency that helps families plan personalized vacations and create unforgettable memories in the most magical place on earth. Planning for a Disney vacation can be stressful, but it doesn't need to be when you're working with a KMV travel specialist who will work with you to customize the perfect vacation for you and your family. Your KMV travel advisor will help you determine what parks to visit on each day, ensure you know the ins and outs of essential tools like My Disney Experience and Genie Plus apps, assist with dining reservations, and of course, share their favorite hacks so you get the most out of your vacation. Visit kmvtravel.com to start making magic now.
When we were planning our first family trip to Disney World, Jackie was the first person that we thought of.
Jackie helped us with every step of the planning, and she helped us pick the right hotel for our itinerary and our budget.
She also gave us great recommendations when it came to scheduling our parks, our dining reservations, and the attractions.
These days, it feels like there's a lot that goes into planning a Disney trip, and there's a lot that we just didn't know about Disney World, and we're just so thankful for Jackie's advice in making it all a little bit easier.
Yeah, when we got to the property, we realized we wanted to add on another park day, so we texted Jackie early in the morning, and she got back to us right away, and that really helped us make it happen.
We had some amazing meals and drinks. We went to Cinderella's Royal Table, we went to Oga's Cantina, we rode Rise of the Resistance without waiting on a long line. And on Jackie's recommendation, we saw the Epcot fireworks from the Skyliner.
This was an unforgettable family trip to Disney World, and Jackie made it happen.
Thank you, Jackie.
International Festival of the Arts food menu has been released. I'm very, very excited for this because, not so low-key, I think that the food at International Festival of the Arts at times is better than the food at the Food and Wine Festival. I think that it's the best food that you get in an Epcot festival altogether. Some returning favorites and a lot of new things as well. Let's start with Communicore Plaza because I was curious to see what they were going to do here because off-season, quote-unquote, they do the festival favorites booth, and I didn't know if they were going to do that again and rehash some old stuff that they had moved very well over at Food and Wine Festival. No, it is 3 brand new food items, one of which I think is going to absolutely fly.
Yeah, these all look like bangers. There's a soft shell crab slider, which I would definitely be interested in trying. That's got green papaya slaw and mango ketchup on a toasted brioche. A cheddar and chive scone with smoked salmon topped with creme fraiche and caviar. Wow.
Yeah.
Festival of the Arts getting really fancy. They're trying to shun the I farts moniker, I think.
Yeah,
with the caviar.
Stop saying it.
And then there's an enchanted rose, which looks really pretty in the picture. It is, of course, a rose, milk chocolate with a raspberry rose center. And then have you seen what they're doing inside Communicore?
No.
It's Disney Broadway. They have like all the props and costumes out.
Oh, that's smart.
It's really cool.
By the way, this enchanted rose, I'm pretty sure you can buy this over at
Amorette's. It's like a staple there. Yeah.
But
it says new.
Well, new to the festival.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that soft shell crab slider is going to fly because people love soft shell crab and it's not always easy to find because it's a very limited season in which you can find it.
Yeah, like you never see that at Food and Wine at the America Pavilion because that I feel
it's
like
out of season by
yeah.
then. But all right, let's move on here. I want to go. Here's another one that's kind of interesting. Fictional victuals. This is going to be near the refreshment station. Squid ink pasta with lump crab, truffle cream, and shaved truffle. This is a no for me, dog. But I feel like that's something that's going to be right up your alley.
It absolutely is. I definitely want to try it, even though it's going to turn my teeth different colors. But for shaved truffle, it's worth it. Every time I see fictional victuals, I really thought it was a typo at first. I was like, wouldn't it be fictional visuals by Journey? I don't know. I feel like that also rolls off the tongue a little bit easier.
Well,
we'll be visiting.
Yeah.
Regardless.
Deconstructed Dish is back. Nothing new here. In fact, there's less to choose from. I'm surprised. I think last year they did a deconstructed French onion soup, which we liked, but if I remember correctly, I think it was better in concept than it was in execution, and I'm guessing that's why it's not here.
I think I remember that one being really messy.
Yeah. Figment's Inspiration Station, we've got the rainbow cake with the freeze-dried Skittles is back.
Never leave us.
Yeah.
It is the best slice of cake.
You've got Craftsman's Courtyard. This I'm really excited about. Listen to this. Beef Wellington-inspired croissant supreme with creamed spinach croissant pinwheel. So that's been a typo. Okay, that should have been A, but it's okay. We're going to let it go. Mushroom gorgonzola ragu, mustard grilled flank steak, red wine sauce, and pickled mustard seeds. Get rid of the mustard, and to me, this is absolutely spectacular. But this is the picture that they've been using for all of their marketing, and I think this is going to be excellent.
No, and this is where this festival really shines, is where you have a beautifully plated dish, and you can do a different sort of concept, like a deconstructed dish, but the flavor is there to back it up.
Yeah. Going all the way down to Painted Panda over in China. This is one that I can, like, that the line over there is usually very long. I can see it being very long for this, the egg tart, a Hong Kong style egg custard tart. I don't know if this is a creme brulee. It does look interesting. It looks like it's beautifully plated. I can see people going nuts for this one.
Yeah, I definitely want to try that because in the picture, it looks like a quiche, but it does read like it's more of a dessert. I would definitely check that out, though.
Yeah, if you go over to Germany, too, there is a new item here, pork and white bean cassoulet with Regensburger sausage and crispy pork rinds. I feel like for a while, Germany didn't shift their menu all that much between, say, Festival of the Arts, the Flower and Garden Festival, and the Food and Wine Festival. I feel like the bratwurst on the pretzel bun was always there. The spätzle may have changed. So it's good to see that they're switching it up, and that actually sounds quite good.
I do love that spätzle, though. I don't care if they don't change that.
Yeah, let's talk about Italy. That's always a hot button topic because Italy is either horrible or amazing. I think this year it has the opportunity to be amazing. They brought back the fried mozzarella on the artist palette again, which was, I think, a festival favorite of ours when they did it the last time. And tricolore, it is a cheese-filled ravioli with pomodoro, cream, and pesto sauces. So you get one of each with a different sauce. This actually looks really good.
It does. And I like the concept because ravioli is so versatile. The way that you stuff it with different things, you can do it with different sauces. So I like that they're giving you a sampler here.
Let's go to America for a second. I think this is going to be very hot button. They have a quote-unquote chicken pot pie, which is basically an open-faced chicken pot pie. That actually looks pretty good. I think that'll be all right. They're doing a deviled egg trio. I don't know about you. I don't care for deviled eggs to begin with. But I would not want to be walking World Showcase if it's hot outside eating deviled eggs.
It really depends on how they're served. I mean, they should be serving them chilled, you know, they should be keeping them cold. So I wouldn't necessarily mind it. I think the concept is good, but that would be something that I was willing to try.
Let's travel down to France because this is another one that is, you wait online forever, you hope that you get something good. More times than not, it is pretty good. I was really hoping that they would have brought back, what was that that croissant they did a couple of years ago?
Oh my gosh. I know that
it was like a warm cheese-filled croissant.
Yeah, the chocolate one was very popular when they did that, but I think it was last year because we managed to get our hands on it.
Yeah.
It was the cheese. It was like a creamy cheese. It might have been
it wasn't gorgonzola.
No, but it did have like that smoky sort of profile because they put a lot of herb in there.
Yeah.
It was really, really good.
We were so enamored with it, we can't remember it. They did not bring it back. However, what they have brought back, or what they have new this year, they're doing a puff pastry with duck, chicken, onions, mushrooms, cranberries, and duck sauce, and an escargot and chocolate, which is a chocolate mousse flourless cake with a citrus coulis, almond chocolate coating, and dark chocolate decoration.
So is that a play on an escargot, or is this like a chocolate-covered grasshopper situation?
No, this sounds like it's a play on an escargot.
Yeah, the picture does look like, now that I'm looking at it, it looks like a snail. I don't think they actually have escargot in here.
No. Okay, the poutine over at the refreshment port. This is another one. Sometimes when they get it right, it is so good. Other times, not so good. The gnocchi was the most disappointing one because it was just so dry. They've done, for this particular festival, a caprese poutine with Tuscan spiced French fries, confit tomatoes, slivered garlic, mozzarella pearls, basil pesto, shaved pecorino, and balsamic glaze. It's a no for me, but you are already reaching for your keys to go get it.
It does look good. I'm surprised though that they would go so heavy into the Italian flavors.
Right? I mean, I guess they're changing it up. I give them, credit for changing it up.
Yeah, 'cause you know what this is really? Like, it is almost like a gnocchi because it's potato.
Right.
Like, I would totally put that over a gnocchi.
And finally, let's look at one more. Swirled Showcase. This is the old Starbucks. It's now a Swirled location, much like Swirled on the Water over at Disney Springs. I don't know how to feel about this. They've gone really heavy on bubblegum. I don't mind bubblegum flavored most things, like Italian ice, bubblegum. Sure, it's fun every now and again to be a kid. They're doing a bubblegum soft serve in a cone, but what I think they're really like aiming for here as like their signature dish is the imagination cone. Bubblegum soft serve in a lavender cone with quote-unquote sparks of imagination and white chocolate wings. Location-wise, it makes sense because it's right next to Journey into Imagination, but it seems a bit odd to me that you would have a Figment-inspired snack on a complete opposite end of the park, opposite from where you have literally a Figment-inspired pavilion where you're serving Figment-inspired food.
Or at the very least, put something over near his 50th statue. Because that's as you're going into World Showcase. But they do have the other portraits over there, the portraits that you can step into and take a picture. So they probably don't have the space for it. If we were to go over there, I would probably get the Liquid Nitro cake pop. That's new this year. It's a berry sponge cake, white chocolate ganache, and color splats on the outside. I've been wanting, we keep saying it. I've yet to try the liquid nitrogen ice cream because they always have some version of it, but this might be the one that gets me because I'm definitely not going to get bubblegum.
Yeah, and I feel like that line is always fairly reasonable when you're over at that booth, regardless of what festival it is.
Well, this time of year, all lines are fairly reasonable.
Yes. Sorry, folks. We celebrate this time of year. Thank you all so much for joining us this and every week on Monoreel Radio. Monoreel Radio will always be free, but there are many ways that you can help support the show. Please give us a rating wherever you listen to your podcast. Join the conversation on social media at Monoreel Radio on all major platforms. Share your favorite episodes with family and friends who may enjoy them. And, of course, book your next trip with Jackie. Links to everything can be found at monoreelradio.com. We all get one story. Make yours a magical one.
On behalf of Monoreel Radio, we'd like to thank you for joining us. We'll see you at the movies, the stuff dreams are made of.